Hi, I'm Dr. Eve Delunas, and this is the second in a four-part series on core beliefs. Today, we're going to be talking about where core beliefs come from. Did you know that most of your core beliefs are formed by the time you are 6 years of age? Now, that's pretty amazing. When you are between birth and the age of 6, or some of us even think before birth while we're in the womb, you are like a sponge and you're taking in information based on the things that you see and hear around you. And that information can come from what you observe from your caregivers, from your parents, from your siblings, from you're going to school at 5, from your schoolmates, from your teachers, from your religious leaders, all of that information, from the commercials you see on TV, if you happen to watch television, from the things that you watch on television, the cartoons or the programs. What you are doing before the age of 6 is taking in all of that information and trying to make sense of it, and trying to make sense of it with respect to you, who you are in this world, and what you can expect in your life, what kind of person you are, how lovable you are, how deserving you are, what you're good at, how you can expect other people to treat you, what you can expect from life in general. And all of this happens outside of your conscious awareness. And that's what's so interesting, because these core beliefs, both positive ones and negative ones, are encoded in a part of our brain that encodes something called implicit memory. So we observe things up until the age of 6. We hear things, we're told things, we see things, and we come to conclusions about who we are, how other people are, how we can expect them to treat us, and what we can expect from life. We encode that in this part of our brain that encodes implicit memories, and then we act on the basis of those beliefs, those core beliefs, those conclusions and decisions that we have made, and we act as if those are the truth about ourselves and other people and the world around us. And so what's not surprising is that we make a lot of false assumptions before the age of 6. For example, let's say that you come from a very loving family, and your family, your parents adore you, and they treat you in loving ways, and you have a great childhood. But your parents fight with each other a lot, and you witness and hear that fighting, and sometimes they even fight over you. As a child, depending on who you are, because we're all different, you might come to the decision, they're fighting because of me, because I'm not good enough. If I was a better son or daughter, my parents would not be fighting. Now, I know this doesn't make any logical sense to an adult, but it makes great sense when you're 3 years old. And so these conclusions we draw can be really unfounded. They can be irrational. They can be a bit curious, because they are a big leap, from what we're observing to what we conclude. Now, I've seen this over and over and over again in clients, and hundreds of clients over the last 35 to 40 years. I've seen this process. So I know this is what we do. And it makes sense that we would do that when we're so young, and we only have so much reasoning ability based on the development of our brain to that point. So something to keep in mind. You probably came to some false conclusions based on what you observed that are really unfounded, that are completely untrue. Another thing to keep in mind is anyone that has experienced trauma, physical trauma, being abused, being sexually abused, being emotionally abused, being subject to some major disasters, that person is all the more likely to come up with negative core beliefs. Because having worked with scores of people who suffered abuse in their childhood, I can tell you I've never met one that didn't come to the conclusion, I am being abused by this person because of me, because I'm not good enough, I'm bad, I'm unlovable, I'm not worthy of good treatment. This is my fault. Now, when we can look at this situation through our adult eyes, we know that absolutely is not true. That the person who is abusing a helpless child is the one who is at fault and has nothing to do with the goodness or badness of that child. But when we experience that as that young child, this is the conclusion we draw. And then we act on this conclusion for the rest of our lives, unless, and there is an unless, we become consciously aware of it and we make a conscious choice to change it. And you always, always, always have that option. Whether you're 20 years old or 80 years old, you can always change these limiting core beliefs into something more positive, and you will see your life change as a result of that. I have an example. A client that I worked with was badly traumatized at the age of 1 when her mother died of cancer. Her mother had been ill throughout the first year of her life and wasn't able to care much for her. Her father was a severe alcoholic, and after her mother died, her father married a woman who became her stepmother for the rest of her life, and the stepmother was a very cruel person who was very, very, very abusive to my client. Beating her, telling her that she was worthless and bad and awful, an awful human being. And this was throughout her childhood. My client ended up, before I met her, becoming a drug addict and a severe heroin and methamphetamine addict. And really ended up very much in the gutter in her life, and her life was going nowhere. Fortunately, she discovered AA and Narcotics Anonymous and joined, and started to really turn things around by taking a good look inside, by making some new choices, by beginning to work on herself. And that's when she came to see me, and we continued that work to where she saw that she concluded that she was bad, that she was at fault for the treatment she got from her stepmother, that she was at fault for the loss of her mother, that she was unlovable, and that's why her mother died. Again, totally irrational, but something that a small child would conclude. You might say, she was 1 year old. How could she conclude that? Well, I'll tell you, people do. They conclude things before they're 1 year old. Because we are observing and this process is going on. It's like we are under hypnosis until the age of 6. So we're very, very susceptible to what we see and hear and misinterpreting it, as I said. Now, so this client, good news, she went on to completely turn her life around. Still had problems with relationships for a while and accepting somebody that could treat her well, but basically began to love herself, which she had never been able to do, treat herself more compassionately, make healthier choices, attract more positive opportunities and people into her life, and really turn things around completely. And that's an example. You know, she was a person in her 40s, but it was obviously not too late for her to make some major shifts in her life. And one of the things that helped her to make those shifts was to begin to look at those negative core beliefs and to choose to change them for herself. So next video, we're going to be looking at how do you identify if you have negative core beliefs, since many of them are unconscious, subconscious, or almost subconscious, just barely conscious. How do you find them? How do you know? Because the last thing to discover water is the fish. So your core beliefs are going to seem like reality to you. They're going to seem like the truth about the world and you, because that's what you've always seen. Because as I said in the first video in this series, whatever you believe, we always make ourselves right. So next video, video number 3, you're going to find out how you go about identifying what are any limiting core beliefs that are in the way for you. And the last part of this series is going to be talking about what do you do to change them? How do you reprogram them? So thank you for watching. Again, if you are interested in getting more information on this topic, then you might want to look at my book, and that is New Science, New Brain, New You. Oops, there's more gray here. And you also can look at my website, evedelunas.com, where I have more information and a lot of free resources on this topic. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.